Another one is board length. A lot of my friends are using windsurfing boards, sort of the iSonic and stuff like that, which, okay, they're fine, they've got the volume, they've got the toe box, and they're also relatively short, which is okay. I wouldn't necessarily go for sort of an old style 140 litre, I don't know, sort of like late 90s slalomy race board, because they're very, very long, and the problem with that is you get an awful lot of board in front of the mast, which is just a swing weight. It's just something else to catch, and it's also something to catch the wind, and it will just unsettle you. So I generally would say that the shorter board that you can go for, the better. But it is, again, it's all about the volume. I think mine's 238 centimetres long, which is really small. But it's, you know, I've seen people quite literally take a windsurfing board and chop off a foot of the nose and glass it up, because it's not needed. Once you're up and running, you don't need that pointy nose. So it's really just a case of, again, what you can find that works. It's volume first, and obviously the type of box that you're going to use, and then it's the length afterwards. But I would generally say the shorter the better. Try to avoid something sort of like 3.5 metres long, because it's just going to be too much leverage, which I'll come to in, or I've been over already in the video. Okay, the other one, 7, is mast length. Now, this is a 61, and this is what I probably spend 90% of my time on. This is a really nice length of mast for the type of conditions that I sail in. We have wind-driven chop, we don't really have swell, and also most of the time I'm out in probably 15 miles an hour of wind, so we don't get huge amounts. Probably riding with about that much out of the water, which gives me a little bit to play with on the bottom. The nice thing about it is if I do breach and the nose goes down, generally by the time it's come out, the nose will not dig in, I won't go over the front, which works quite well. It also means I get to sail in slightly shallower water, which is generally flatter, and also I can stand up, so if there's a problem I can get home. I can adjust things as well. Most of them generally come with a 90 centimetre mast, but I would definitely say investing in a 60 or a 70 would be really worth it, because it's lighter. It just seems to feel a much nicer mast. You don't need it if you're out on a 6 metre or a 5.5, because there really isn't the chop. So that's one. However, this little thingy, this is what a lot of people get to learn on, and I can highly recommend it. If you're looking to start foiling, I'd say just invest in one of these. They are out there second hand. There are other people that have learned and probably got them in their quivers. They're brilliant. So you could go out windsurfing with a foil on the bottom, go out, and it doesn't matter how many times you breach or come out, nothing bad is going to happen, because it will come out, it'll breach, and you'll just drop back on the water again. What you will really notice is that you'll be getting planing a lot quicker with a foil underneath than you would with a windsurfing fin. So yeah, I would say for definite this is an investment that is well worth getting, because it will accelerate your learning a lot. So because there's so much that you're going to have to go through your mind, if you can cross over from windsurfing by using one of these, it's definitely going to be a help. So that's a 15-inch, so that's a great little thing. I've used this with my big foil. Yeah, and you know, that much of it was out of the water, and I had the control that I was flying around because it was really flat. There was hardly any chop at all, because I was in quite shallow water. That's a really good bit of kit. I've got the 90 as well, which I do use, and I tend to use this mainly when it's really windy, because then as it starts to get windier, sorry, this is the 71, so I tend to use this as it gets windier, because it's just a little bit more choppy, and it's just a little bit more than the 60, and I tend to use it more with sort of like a 5/6 down to a 5, and when I know there's absolutely no chance of me running around either, so that's a nice one to have. And I've also got the 90, which I use when it's really windy, and it's really big chop, but I don't get to use it that often because I'm not really a high wind sailor now. There you go. Okay, so 8 is fuselage length, and your fuselage is what everything attaches to. Very, very important bit of kit, because your front wing will attach to it, your mast will attach to it, and your rear wing will attach to it. My first foil that I have come to the conclusion that my fuselage was too short. It was probably about that long, and with the design of foil, it made it a very, very short fuselage, which meant that when I got up and running, it was like this all the time, and I could not settle. And I eventually came to the conclusion that my fuselage was too short, so I tried one with a longer fuselage, different make, and straight away I was better. So I went for the fuselage. Now, this is the slingshot one, this is the switch fuse. So it's called a switch fuse because you can put your mast there, you can put your mast there, but if you turn it over, you can turn it round, and you can move everything around as you need to. It's quite a good bit of kit. So that's how that works. So I would say with your fuselage length, if you're going for the slingshot kit, the fuselage will come with it. However, they do slightly smaller fuselages for different setups. So if you've bought some kit off of someone second hand, I would definitely look at the length of the fuselage compared to what the new kit would have, to make sure it is the right one that gets set up with it. Because if you've got the wrong one, it could lead to you making it very difficult for yourself to actually learn how to foil. But yeah, just make sure it's the right length, and I would say as long as possible, because if it's long, it's going to be a little bit more stable for you. If it's a short one, it's going to be a lot more like this, and you want it to be reasonably stable for you. Okay, so fuselage length. Okay, foot straps, we went over that on the balance point of things. As I say, there's different kinds of, there's different styles of foiling. There's the very upright free ride stance, which is pretty much what I do. There is your outboard on the rail racing stance, and that's a completely different technique, which I'm not even going to go near because I don't. But certainly foot straps, you can ride without any. People do. You can ride with a front foot strap only, no rear. People do. And you can ride with all of your foot straps front and back, and you can also ride with foot straps on the outer and also front foot straps on the inner if you have a really wide board for different settings. Single centre foot strap or two centre foot straps at the back, no problem. I tend to use my foot straps quite wide open. There's a reason for that. It's not probably the safest, because there is a chance you can get your foot a long way in and get it trapped, but one of the reasons I do ride with a more open foot strap is because I can move my feet around within the foot strap to get my heel position to weight it, because it's incredibly weight sensitive, and if you can move your feet like that, you've just moved all of your weight forward. If you can move your feet back, you've just moved all your weight back. If you can move that one like that and that one that, you've made a wider stance. If you make a narrow stance, you can move around within your foot straps. Your foot straps really are there just to sort of keep you on the board if it starts to get a little bit bumpy, and also when you're pumping, you can get that direct drive through as well. So yeah, if you have tight foot straps and you're used to them, then go with that. But I tend to ride myself with slightly bigger foot straps than normal. My back foot straps are actually, normally that's probably how they should be on the board. I've got them one hole out, so they're even wider, so I can move my foot within the foot strap front and back, and slightly in and out as I need to. It's all about finding that balance point. And number 10 is mast foot position for the sail. And if you're using a foil board, and you'll generally find that a foil board, the mast track will be further back than it will be on a windsurfing board. So again, that's for you to find out where you need to be. If you're a tall person and you've got quite long arms, I would suggest that you probably have the mast track a little bit further forward, and if you're fairly short, then you probably need to have it a little bit further back, because what you don't want to be doing is, if your mast track is quite a long way forward and you are reaching forward, then you've weighted your front foot. If you can get it so that ideally when you're sailing, your mast is nice and upright and your balance point is in front of your chest, there's a bit of video now just to show you my position as I sail, and you'll see that I'm very balanced. The harness lines are nicely in the centre of my body, and that is a nice position to be in. If you imagine if that mast track was further forward, I'd be leaning, which would be putting weight on my front foot, which would then be making the nose go down, and in which case I'd probably then have to lean back, and I'd be in a bit of a strange position. I wouldn't be relaxed. So it depends on the make of your board and where it is, but I would suggest that you, as you start to get going and you get a little bit better, and actually on the foil, is that if you feel that you're having to lean a little bit, then just bring it more back. You want to ideally have the mast upright and have that lovely balance point right in the centre of your chest if you can do it when you're sailing, and that really is just about where that moves. If the nose is constantly dropping, if you're struggling to keep the nose of the board up, I would suggest move it back. If the nose is constantly coming up and you're struggling, that's also a foil position problem as well. You can move it forward. And it's one of the things you can do on the water. If you can get into the shallows, you can move it forward by an inch, see how it feels, move it forward another inch, see how it feels, and you go from there. But generally you'll find that a windsurfing board, the mast track is a very, very long way forward, in which case I would say if you're using a windsurfing board to foil, get it to the back of the track as far as you can, and that's probably where it's going to stay for the rest of your foiling career. Okay, here's an 11th one for you as well. I lost my foil, hence the reason that I've got extra bits, because I lost my whole foil setup. It sheared off the bottom of my board while I was kite surfing. I lost it, thought it was gone. I ended up buying a new foil setup, and then I found it. It was a long story, lots of snorkeling in really crappy water, but I found it. The moral of the story is that you need to make sure that this is quite expensive kit, and there is an awful lot of force going through this stuff. So what I did is I invested in some very, very good quality stainless steel, industrial stainless steel bolts for my kit, because I've heard some fairly good horror stories of the supplied bolts on various manufacturers failing. People using too short a bolt, and they only being held on with 3 or 4 threads, and they've sheared, and some of them have just completely snapped, and people have lost their foils. So for the sake of £20, or I don't know, $30 or something like that, you can buy yourself 2 good sets of all of the bolts that you need, and I used a company called ACCU, ACCU. I'll put a link in the underneath to where they are. They supply all of them. They're high quality stainless steel, and I use them with the grease that you get. I use marine grease, and so far not a problem. There's no wear on them at all. You can see the difference. The supplied ones, you can see they're wearing already. There's the threads a little bit thin. There's also, when you undo the bolts, you will see a lot of black within the threads, and that is the bolt itself and the aluminium. They're basically starting to cause this sort of dust. So with these stainless ones, you don't get any of that. So again, I think for the sake of £20, $30, just get a decent set of bolts. They are what hold everything onto the bottom of your board. Now you may just get back to the beach with a mast and you've lost your foil. Well, there you go. There's sort of $700-800 gone. You may lose the whole lot. Comes out of the tuttle head, something like that. So that's definitely one for you to look at. Like I said, I'll put the link down there. That's where I got mine from. But yeah, that's what holds your kit to your board, and I wouldn't chance it. So. In this clip you can see how the simple things of moving the mast foot back. I've gone back from the middle of the track right to the back. My harness lines are now forward by about probably 3, maybe 4 inches on the boom, which means that I'm not oversheeting. My front wing is now forward by probably 2, maybe 3 inches. I've moved my foot straps slightly forward, and you can just see the difference. The board was just constantly touching down. I was on my back foot. I was sheeted in because I wanted to feel that power which was keeping the nose down. It was just awful. And then the next clip is all of those things have been put into place, and suddenly it's all balanced. I'm not oversheeting. I have a little bit of lift on my front foot, so I'm always sort of keeping the nose down, and it's just flying, and there's no touching down, and it's effortless. And because of that, I'm actually going faster as well. So they are different foils, but they're exactly the same surface area. So it's just that technique. These little tiny things can make a difference, and it's just a case of balancing them all out. But it's looking for the signs. If you're constantly touching down, then you need to move something to do that. You don't want to be feeling massive amounts of power in the sail all the time, because that's windsurfing. It doesn't work. It gives you a load of sideways force, which is putting pressure on the mast, which is causing spin out. It's also producing a lot of drag. You think you've got power, but you're not going very fast. It's efficiency that you want to have. And that worked because I moved the mast track back, I moved the harness lines forward, and I was standing more upright. I'm in a much better position to lean and weight my feet. I'm also able to sheet in and out to get that feeling of where the most efficient power is, rather than just sitting out there windsurfing, because it doesn't work. So there's quite a good comparison there between the two things. That's just a couple of little tiny moment things that took me a while to figure out, and hopefully they may work for you. Okay, so I hope that's given you a little bit more info and a little bit more insight into sort of starting out on the foiling. There is a lot to go, or there is a lot to learn, but if you've already windsurfed, you're nearly there. It's just understanding what's going on and what is possibly causing some of those issues. So I'm always happy to answer questions. I do get a lot of questions, as you see on my comments. I answer every single one of those. I get a lot of private messages as well, so I'm always happy to answer the questions as much as I can. But I've made this because there's a lot of people who've been asking questions about these subjects, so hopefully that's done. I'm not an expert. This is just stuff that I've learned, and I tend to try and think about it and then come up with an explanation. I've been through it, as you've seen in my videos. Obviously, if you feel that something I've said is wrong, or it could be worded differently, let me know, and I'll see if I can correct it in another video at another time. Coming into the winter season now, it is getting quite cold here now, so I'm probably not going to get out foiling probably till March, April next year now, which is a shame because it's been absolutely fantastic summer. So I will continue to sort of work on bits and bobs to sort of figure out how it is. Yeah, so like I said, if you've got questions, then do. If you can give me a thumbs up, if you can subscribe, that'd be cool. And if you do get any vids of yourselves, just point me to it. 'Cause it's always nice seeing people progressing on and going from there. So next year is going to be the year of the jibe. I'm getting about probably 30% at the moment, but next year is going to be 100% and 100% foiling. So enjoy the rest of the year, and happy foiling, everyone.